I'm Scott Ott, and here's a thought. Hillary Clinton's dazzling performance during 11 hours of testimony before the House Select Committee on Benghazi has cleared up all outstanding questions. Her dazzling day restored her reputation as a dedicated, dazzling public servant and lifted her back up onto that pedestal upon which she rightly stood during her historic tenure as our first wealthy, white, elderly, female former First Lady Secretary of State who's also dazzling. Now, of course, who among us has 11 hours to devote to watching C-SPAN, or 11 minutes for that matter? What with all the Twittering and Facebooking and Instagramming and candy crushing we have on our plate. So here at Scott Ott Thought, we thought we would boil it down to a bite-sized nutshell. Republicans devoted about 10 of the 11 hours to making sincerely impassioned speeches and asking Mrs. Clinton about her platonic soulmate, Sidney Blumenthal, with whom she shares 29 dimensions of compatibility, along with a personal email address. Democrats on the panel, on the other hand, devoted their time to asking hard-hitting questions of Mrs. Clinton like, aren't those Republicans on a political witch hunt? And didn't you do a great job as Secretary of State? And is that your real eye color? Wow. But during the very brief time set aside for relevant questions, Republicans asked about emails that Mrs. Clinton sent on the evening of September 11, 2012, during the Benghazi attack. In those emails, she plainly asserted that the attack on the Benghazi consulate was pre-planned by a group of Islamist terrorists and had nothing to do with an internet video protest. Mrs. Clinton now says that her accurate assessment at that time was due to the fog of war and the fast-moving pace of events, which is why she made up the internet video protest story. You see, most Americans would have been shocked to learn that Muslim terrorists were using Libya as a base after President Obama and Mrs. Clinton had told them to skedaddle, especially since President Obama's campaign had repeatedly asserted that al-Qaeda was on the run.
Al-Qaeda is on the path to defeat.
So, it was important to spare us the discomfort of learning that the power vacuum created by Obama's posterior leadership had made Libya into a base for Muslim terror operations. So naturally, Hillary Clinton told us that the attack on the Benghazi consulate was a spontaneous protest over an internet video that just got out of hand. Kind of like the parade scene at the end of Animal House. We felt better about that, and rejoiced to hear that the Egyptian-born filmmaker, a Coptic Christian, was tossed in an American jail just 16 days after those attacks. After all, the future does not belong to those who slander the Prophet of Islam, as the president told the whole world just days later, and as countless headless bodies can certainly attest. And it was a mere 21 months later that we captured Abu Khatallah, an accused mastermind of the attacks. Khatallah now sits in an American jail, on his Muslim prayer rug, reading his Arabic Quran, enjoying halal food, and taking meetings with his U.S. taxpayer-funded defense team. Our top-notch attorneys have succeeded in delaying his trial twice, and we feel really good about that because justice. Of course, nobody but crazy Republicans could blame Hillary Clinton for the inadequate security at the Benghazi consulate because she considered Ambassador Chris Stevens a friend, and she personally picked him for that post. You know, she didn't sleep at all the night he was stripped, beaten, tortured, burned, shot, and slaughtered. Can you even imagine what it's like to go a whole night without sleep? But as Shakespeare said, all's well that ends well. We now know that throwing that filmmaker in jail pacified the righteous indignation of many Muslims around the world, which is why we haven't seen any acts of violence from Al-Qaeda, Ansar al-Sharia, or ISIS for, who can remember? Hillary Clinton really did dazzle us, didn't she? I'm Scott Ott, and there's a thought.